All righty. So I was hoping this week to have some more information about some of the other collaborators from the Sharpatory Biogeographical Expedition to East Africa. And I was able to find a little bit on a couple of them, but not a ton. And I want to do some more digging. So I'm going to hold off for now to try to find some more information and do another collector at this point. So kind of TBD, stay tuned. Hopefully I can feature some more of these collectors when I get some more information.
Can I interrupt real quick? You know,
Sure,
like
go
those
ahead.
numbers, like 535/A, you put in the A, because I've seen a bunch. You know, you have 758/A and 7.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So in collector number for those ones, definitely.
Okay, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. So we always have, again, I think, with those, a lot of times that number was originally given to the specimen, and then oftentimes they separate it out and like, oh, it's actually multiple species mixed together. So like one gets an A, another one gets a B, C. Sometimes there's like multiple letters down to E, F, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so I would record that again. It'll still match with a duplicate. It'll still link itself with a 535, another 535 by the number. But that way it's kind of showing it's kind of a sub number. So yeah, that's a good question. So yeah. So any other questions before we get going? Okay, if not, like I said, feel free to let me know. But yeah, that's a great question, and we see it a lot on these sharp specimens. They have a lot of sub numbers, so you'll see that a lot. But so the name I chose for today is one you might have come across. It's H.N. Dixon. So this is actually not a collector we have a ton of, not collected by him. So most of the ones we do have collected by him are often from the herb of F.A. McFadden, who is Fay A. McFadden, the American bryologist that we discussed some time ago, if you remember. This one was collected in, you can see 1906 in Adelboden, which actually turns out to be this beautiful mountain town in Switzerland, which looks amazing. The specimen itself is this cute little fuzzy, almost a little fuzzy arch here, interesting shape. The species is Hypnum holleri, which is a synonym of Campylophyllum holleri, which is Haller's feather moss. You can see some examples here in this nice little guide that I found on the British Bryological Association website. We also have some specimens that weren't necessarily collected by him, but are listed as being in the herbarium of H.N. Dixon. So from his personal collection, like this one from 1923 in Chile. And then there's also a number that were actually not collected by him, but were determined or identified by him. So you can see this one's from 1934, which coincidentally is from Mount Meru in Tanzania. So a very tangential link to our collectors last week from Tanzania. So H.N. Dixon was Hugh Neville Dixon. He's described as certainly the best known amateur bryologist of his time from Britain. He was born in 1861 in Wickham Bishop, which is in Essex. So that's in kind of southeast England here, to a wealthy agricultural family. And he was one of 6 siblings. So there was 3 brothers and 3 sisters, although sadly 2 of those sisters died in infancy. He was educated at Woodham, which is also in Essex, and then Southgate, which is in northern London. And then he enrolled in Christ College at Cambridge in 1979, which, fun fact, that is also was also attended by Charles Darwin, although several decades earlier. And he actually studied classics while he was there, but he was definitely interested in natural history. So it said that as a youth, he went out botanizing with his older brother, and that he was interested in mosses by the time he went to university. So while there, he was encouraged in his botanical interests by a botany professor called Charles Babington, and also by one of his uncles who was living in Cambridge, who tutored students in natural sciences and collected insects. So he received a first-class degree in 1883. Let me see, sorry, again, lost. And then moved to Northampton, which is in kind of southern central England here, to help in the running of a school for deaf children. And he actually ended up having, Dixon had a younger brother named Rollo Havey Dixon, who was born deaf and mute. And so Dixon had mastered sign language as a child. and his brother was actually a pupil there at the school. So he ended up taking over as headmaster in 1884 and worked at the school until he retired in 1914. An interesting side note, his brother, Rollo, actually became a market gardener in the UK, so selling produce and flowers, and eventually moved to Canada. He submitted some specimens from Alberta to several U.S. herbaria, including this moss specimen, or this liverwort specimen that was collected in Alberta that's now at Yale University. So it's kind of interesting. You can kind of imagine perhaps when they were younger that they were out botanizing together, with his older brother. That might be why he was interested in plants even after he moved abroad. So while Hugh didn't get a formal botany degree, we know he was actively learning about plants, collecting plants while he was at university. So this is his copy of the Flora of Cambridgeshire. And in the corner, you can see it's got his name. It's dated 1882. And then it's filled with annotations and notes that he recorded of kind of his travels around looking at plants while he was there. He, in 1883, so the year he graduated, he found a rare moss from the genus Tortula near Cambridge. And he listed it among some other rare mosses that he found in his first published botanical work in 1884 in the Journal of Botany. So you can kind of see this here. And that was followed the same year by a work on Northampton mosses, which is, again, where he was working at the school. So he traveled and collected mosses throughout the British Isles and maintained his own laboratory and herbarium. He made collecting trips to Portugal, Sicily, Scandinavia. There's specimens from at least one trip to the Western United States. He discovered a new species in the Austrian Alps and was chosen as a bryologist for a Norwegian expedition to Tristan da Cunha, which is an island in the South Atlantic, in 1937. He became a fellow of the Linnaean Society at the age of 24, a member of the council at age 30, and was its vice president in 1928. He was the secretary of Northamptonshire Naturalist Society and Field Club for 45 years. And he started the Northampton Society's Herbarium. And he was also a founding member of the Moss Exchange Club in 1896 and was the first president of the British Bryological Society, which was basically followed after the Moss Exchange Club in 1923. So it said he was always keen to help professionals and amateurs alike and maintained a vast correspondence in the UK and abroad. And that included our Kiwi lawyer bryologist, G.O.K. Sainsbury. So you may remember me mentioning Dixon actually in that presentation, and that the pair described 23 new species and 2 new varieties of bryophytes together. He also collected with Winona Welch, who was an American bryologist that we also featured before when she came to Wales in 1938. He published a steady stream of papers over the course of 60 years on British, European, and worldwide mosses. His bibliography actually took up 6 pages in his obituary that was written in The Bryologist. There's over 200 entries. And he worked both very locally, so he did a lot of county lists within Britain for mosses, but also became an expert on the bryoflora of the Southwest Pacific, including New Guinea, Indonesia, Thailand, and Fiji. He's most remembered for his The Student's Handbook of British Mosses, which was published in 1897. And it was the standard work on British mosses until at least the late 1970s. And I found a reprint as late as 2010. And a quote said, he had, like Watson after him, the gift of picking out important points of identification that would assist in naming difficult species. So pretty important skill. And he also wrote a book, The Studies in Bryology of New Zealand, that was published over 1913 to 1929, presumably from some of his correspondence with G.O.K. Sainsbury and the other New Zealand collectors. So he was a very prolific taxonomist, and he described many new species and subspecies. I don't have an exact number, but Tropicos has about over 2,000 names that are associated with him in some way. After his retirement from the school in 1914, he devoted his time almost exclusively to the study of mosses. He received a bachelor's and master's degree from the University of London later in his life. He had a variety of other interests, including poetry. He published 2 books of poems. He enjoyed metalwork, carpentry, and gardening. He was an enthusiastic mountaineer. He climbed every high mountain in Britain except for one, and he visited the Pyrenees, the Alps, and mountains in Scandinavia. He played hockey until he was over 50 and climbed Skiddaw, which is here, the 6th highest peak in England, on his 80th birthday. So stayed very active. He gave lectures and exhibited microscopic specimens. He led outings into the field. He read a paper, he even read out a paper on Sumatran mosses at the Linnean Society in the year that he passed away in 1944 at the age of 83. So his specimens were deposited at the Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew, the British Museum, and a number of other herbaria. I found close to 3,000 specimens of his in the Bryophyte portal, and that's not including specimens that he identified. And then also 224 lichens, 800 plus vascular plants, and GBIF has over 2,000, at least 2,000 plus specimens that he collected in their portal. Yeah, so a lot of collection, probably still a lot more out there, obviously, from the time period of his collecting. And yeah, so that is just a short summary of H.N. Dixon. And I'll end again with a little quote. So it said, "There can be no more fitting monument to such a spirit than the accumulated results of his life's work, which here represents a large and highly important contribution to systematic biology. Such results do not come by chance. They are the fruit of many years of devoted, conscientious labor, and we who are left behind are fortunate in it being able to share this precious heritage." So pretty impressive career for an amateur, especially. One piece in kind of a very interconnected web of scientists, very passionate about bryophytes at that time. And yeah, I thought pretty interesting. So thanks again for listening.